I heard it by accident. The backyard was full of cheap white lights and the smell of grilled meat, the folding tables lined with aluminum trays I had paid for that morning. Emily stood near the fence in her blue graduation dress, diploma tube still tucked under one arm, laughing with three of her friends like the night belonged to her. I was coming back from the garage with another case of soda when I heard my name. Not even my name. Really, Mark's basically irrelevant, she said, taking a sip from her plastic cup. He just kind of exists. Honestly, if he disappeared tomorrow, I don't think anything would really change. Her friends laughed the way teenagers do when they smell blood but want to sound harmless. I stopped before I turned the corner. Just stood there with the cold cardboard digging into my fingers. One of the girls asked, "Isn't he the one who paid for all this?" Emily shrugged. I could hear it in her voice. That's just what he does. My mom handles everything important. Something inside me went still. I had been in her life since she was 6. I built the pink bookshelf that used to stand in her room when she was obsessed with horses. I sat through elementary school recitals on stiff cafeteria benches, then middle school band concerts where half the notes came out wrong and I still clapped the loudest. I drove her early morning practices, to dentist appointments, to a college tour 2 states away when Laura said she was too busy. Every birthday cake, every winter coat, every late-night pharmacy run when she was sick. I was there for all of it, quietly, consistently, without asking for applause. I remember the first time she called me Dad. She was 8, half asleep in the back seat after a field trip, and she said, "Dad, can we get fries?" Then she blinked awake, embarrassed, like she had made a mistake. I bought the fries anyway and never mentioned it, because I thought some things were too precious to touch. Now I stood in the dark beside my own garage, listening to her erase me with a laugh. The music kept playing from the rented speaker. Someone near the patio shouted for more ice. Laura was inside slicing cake, probably smiling for pictures, probably assuming the night had gone perfectly. I set the soda down silently and looked past the fence into the black stretch of trees behind the house. I felt no anger at first. That would have been easier. What I felt was sharper than anger and colder than grief. Clarity. Then I picked up the box, walked back into the light, and kept hosting her party. I smiled in every photo after that. That was the part I'm still proud of. Emily opened cards at the patio table, while Laura stood beside her with one hand on her shoulder, reading the bigger checks out loud like they were part of the entertainment. Her friends circled close, loud and bright and careless, taking pictures with their phones, already pulling the night apart into little pieces for other people to look at. I handed out plates, refilled drinks, hauled out fresh trays of food when the first ones were scraped clean. More than once, someone clapped me on the back and said, "Great party, Mark." I nodded every time. The sky darkened slowly over the yard, and the string lights I had hung that afternoon began to glow against the trees. Somebody started a playlist with too much bass. Emily laughed through all of it, never once looking at me long enough to see that something had changed. Maybe that was the final truth of it. Nothing had changed for her, because she had never really looked in the first place. Around 10:30, the older relatives started leaving. By 11, only Emily's friends remained, clustered near the fire pit, their voices sharp with sugar and cheap beer. Laura was tired but happy, moving through the wreckage of paper plates and half-finished drinks with the smug exhaustion of someone who thought the night had been a success. She kissed my cheek in the kitchen and said, "You pulled this off." I looked at her over the sink full of serving spoons and said, "Yeah." I had packed the bag 3 weeks earlier, not in anger, not even in certainty, just in recognition of a pattern I could no longer ignore. The bag sat in the trunk of my car beneath an old blanket, already stocked with shirts, cash, medication, copies of documents, a second phone, and a key to the apartment I had rented under another name across the state line. My plan had started as a possibility. Over the months, it became structure, then protection. By graduation night, it became necessity. At 12:14 a.m., I took out one last trash bag and set it by the garage. At 12:19, I turned off the patio lanterns one section at a time. At 12:27, Emily stumbled past me in bare feet, still laughing with her friends, and said, "Can you leave the coolers out?" "We're not done." I said, "Sure." That was the last thing she said to me before I left. I waited until the house settled into that thin silence that comes after a long night. A door shut upstairs. Water ran briefly through the pipes. Then nothing. I took my keys from the ceramic bowl by the entryway, walked out without turning on a light, and closed the front door softly behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't leave a scene. I didn't need anyone to watch me go. By the time the sun came up, I was already gone. Laura noticed the silence first. She told me that later, through a lawyer, but I can picture it clearly. The house after a party always feels different in the morning. Heavy, stale, like the walls are holding on to the noise from the night before. Cups on every surface. Sticky rings on the table. The faint smell of smoke drifting in from a fire pit. She woke up around 8. I'm usually already up by then. Coffee made. Dishwasher running. Quiet routine. Predictable. That morning there was nothing. No sound from the kitchen. No footsteps. No low hum of the news playing in the background. Just silence. She checked the bedroom first. The bed on my side was still made, the sheets barely disturbed. That was the first crack. Then she walked downstairs, probably expecting to find me outside cleaning up what everyone else had left behind. Instead, she found the house exactly as it had been left. And something else. The briefcase was sitting in the middle of the dining table. Black, locked, centered perfectly between the chairs like it belonged there more than anything else in the room. Laura didn't touch it right away. She called my name first. Once. Then louder. The kind of call that carries irritation before it carries concern. No answer. Emily came down around that time, still in last night's oversized hoodie, mascara faintly smudged under her eyes. She asked for water, complained about her head, didn't even look at the table at first. "Where's Mark?" she asked. Laura didn't answer immediately. She was staring at the briefcase now. There was a single envelope resting on top of it. My handwriting. Emily grabbed a glass on the counter and filled it halfway, then leaned against the sink. "Did you go out already?" she said, like it didn't matter either way. Laura picked up the envelope slowly, like it might explain itself before she opened it. Inside, there was no letter, no explanation, no emotion, just a single sheet of paper with 2 lines typed cleanly in the center. 11:30 a.m. Daniel H. Crowley, attorney at law. And beneath it, a phone number. Emily frowned. "What is that?" Laura didn't answer, because that was the moment she understood something I had already accepted weeks ago. I wasn't late. I wasn't out. I wasn't coming back. Laura didn't call the number right away. That's what surprised me when I later saw the timeline. She tried to open the briefcase first. Of course she did. She ran her fingers along the edges, turned it, checked for a latch she might have missed. There wasn't one. It was a combination lock, and she didn't have the code. Emily watched in the doorway, arms crossed, irritation slowly replacing her hangover. "Just break it," she said. Laura shook her head. No, not yet. Control mattered to her. It always had. At 11:12 a.m., she finally picked up her phone and dialed a number. The call lasted less than a minute. By 11:30, they were both sitting across from a man in a quiet office that smelled like polished wood and paper. Daniel Crowley didn't waste time with small talk. He already knew who they were. That was part of the arrangement. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, folding his hands. Mr. Ellis left specific instructions regarding this meeting. Emily shifted in her seat. "Where is he?" Crowley didn't look at her. "That's not relevant right now." He slid a small card across the desk. "A combination," he said, "for the briefcase." Laura's fingers tightened around her purse. "What is this about?" Crowley met her eyes for the first time. "It's about documentation." That word landed heavier than it should have. They didn't open the briefcase there. Crowley insisted they take it home first, said everything would make more sense in the appropriate setting. It was controlled, measured, exactly how I wanted it. Back at the house, the mess from the party was still there. Sunlight exposed everything more harshly now. Spilled drinks, footprints on the patio, a paper banner half torn down. Emily kicked aside a crushed cup as they walked to the table. Laura entered the combination with steady hands. The lock clicked. Inside, everything was arranged with precision. Folders, labeled, tabbed, chronological, not chaos, not revenge, evidence. The first folder Laura opened was marked Adoption, Emily Carter/Ellis. Emily rolled her eyes. What does that have to do with anything? Laura didn't answer. She flipped through the pages slowly at first, then faster. Then she stopped, completely still. There were court forms, agency letters, background checks, all the right names, all the right stamps, and one missing piece. Finalization. No judge's signature. No legal completion. The process had never been finished. Emily frowned. So what? It just means. It means, Laura said quietly, it was never finalized. Her voice had changed. Flat, tight. Emily looked confused. But you always said... I know what I said. Laura's hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from recognition, because the next document in the folder wasn't incomplete. It was altered, dates that didn't match official records, signatures that looked right until you looked too closely, a certification that had been adjusted. Emily leaned closer. What is that? Laura didn't answer immediately. She didn't need to, because in that moment, both of them understood something that couldn't be undone. I hadn't just left. I had opened a door they could never close again. Emily was the one who opened the second folder. Her hands were still steady. That didn't last. The tab read, Financial Activity, Mark Ellis. Why is your name on this? She asked, flipping it open without waiting for an answer. Laura stepped closer. Too quickly. Give me that. But Emily had already seen enough to hesitate. Bank statements, credit reports, transaction logs, not summaries, detailed breakdowns. Every account tied to my name had been mapped out, dates, amounts, transfers, highlighted sections, notes in the margins, patterns drawn within black lines like someone had been connecting dots for a long time. This is weird, Emily muttered. Laura took the folder from her, scanning faster now, her breathing uneven. Then she stopped. There was a separate section clipped together. Different header, different name. L. Grant Holdings. Emily frowned. What is that? Laura didn't answer. She turned the page. And the next, invoices, loan agreements, vendor payments, all under that name. But the funding source, my accounts, my credit lines, my identity. Emily leaned in again. Why is his name on all this? Because it wasn't just funding. It was authorization, digital signatures, copy credentials, access logs, every move traced back. Laura's voice came out low. This isn't. But it was. Months, maybe years. A business that didn't exist publicly, running quietly under a different name, pulling money from accounts I owned, building debt that legally pointed back to me. Emily shook her head. No, this doesn't make sense. Why would he? He didn't. Laura snapped. Too fast. Too sharp. Silence followed. Emily looked at her differently now. Not confused. Not dismissive. Focused. What do you mean he didn't? Laura didn't respond. Because the next page didn't leave room for interpretation. It was a risk assessment. Typed. Structured. Cold. Exposure liability. Identity misuse. Bullet points. Unauthorized account access, forged approvals, misrepresentation of ownership, and at the bottom, a projected outcome, legal action, asset seizure, criminal liability, names listed, Laura Ellis, primary. Emily swallowed. Mom. Laura stepped back on the table like the paper had burned her. This isn't finished, she said quickly. This is something you put together to what? Emily asked. Her voice had changed now. No laughter left. No softness. Make it up, she added quietly. Laura didn't answer, because the truth wasn't in the explanation. It was in the consistency. Every page aligned. Every transaction matched. Every detail verified. This wasn't something I created overnight. This was something I built slowly, carefully, while living in the same house. sitting at the same table, paying for the same life they never questioned. Emily looked back at the folder, then at her mother, and for the first time, she didn't know who she was standing next to. They tried to find me that same afternoon, not out of concern, out of urgency. Laura called my phone first, straight to voicemail. She called again, same result. Then again, faster this time, like repetition might force a different outcome. Emily watched, arms folded tightly now. Call his work, she said. Laura hesitated for half a second. Then she did. The call lasted longer this time. Her voice shifted through stages, controlled, then strained, then sharp. What do you mean resigned? Silence. When? Another pause. No, that's not possible. He didn't say anything. Her hand tightened around the phone. Effective immediately? She ended the call without saying goodbye. Emily stepped forward. What did they say? Laura looked at her, but not fully. He's not there anymore. What do you mean not there? He resigned. Yesterday. That landed. Yesterday. While setting up tables. While grilling food. While smiling in photos. Emily's voice dropped. That doesn't make sense. Laura didn't respond. She was already dialing another number. Family. My brother first. Then my sister. Same answers. No one had seen me. No one had heard from me. No one knew anything. Or at least, that's what they said. By evening, the pattern was undeniable. I hadn't just left the house. I had removed myself completely. Emily checked my office next. Drawers emptied. Laptop gone. No scattered papers. No forgotten cables. Clean. Too clean. He planned this, she said quietly. Laura didn't deny it this time, because the briefcase had already proven that. Emily moved to the garage. My tools were still there, but the car, gone. No note, no trace. She came back inside slower this time, like each step was catching up to something she didn't want to reach. What are we supposed to do? She asked. Laura looked at the folders, still spread across the table, at the names, at the numbers, at the consequences that were no longer hypothetical. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. This is Daniel Crowley. The voice said calmly, I wanted to inform you that from this point forward, all communication regarding Mr. Ellis will go through my office. Laura's voice sharpened. Where is he? A pause. Unavailable. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll receive. Emily stepped closer, listening now. Laura's grip tightened. You don't get to just... He can't just disappear. Crowley didn't raise his voice. He already has. Silence stretched across the line. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, and I would strongly advise you to review the remaining contents of the briefcase. The call ended. Laura lowered the phone slowly. Emily didn't ask anything this time. She just looked back at the table, at what was left unopened, and for the first time, the house didn't feel like there was any more. They didn't open the rest of the briefcase right away. They should have. Instead, Laura spent the next hour making calls that went nowhere, pacing the kitchen like movement alone could fix something that had already been dismantled. Emily sat at the table, staring at the same page without turning it, her leg bouncing under the chair. At 2:07 p.m., the first call came in. Laura answered without checking the number. Mrs. Ellis? A man's voice asked. Calm. Professional. Yes. This is regarding account activity flagged this morning. We need to verify several transactions tied to your joint holdings. Laura straightened. There must be some mistake. A pause. I'm afraid not. Multiple accounts have been temporarily restricted pending review. Emily looked up sharply. Restricted how? Laura asked. Frozen. The word landed heavier than anything else that day. For how long? She pushed. That depends on the outcome of the audit. Laura's voice tightened. What audit? Another pause. An internal review triggered by documented irregularities. The call ended with instructions she barely listened to. Emily stood slowly. What does that mean? Laura didn't answer immediately, because her phone buzzed again. Different number. Then again, and again. By the fourth call, the pattern was clear. Banks, advisors, a lender. Each conversation peeled back another layer. Lines of credit suspended, transactions flagged, accounts under investigation. And beneath all of it, a single consistent detail. The audit had already been underway. For months, Emily's voice cut through the noise. He did this. Laura snapped. No, he didn't. But it sounded weaker now, because the documents on the table said otherwise. Every transaction they were being questioned about, already cataloged, already analyzed, already explained. Emily grabbed another folder, flipping it open with less hesitation now. Audit summary, private, pages of notes, dates, amounts, cross-reference accounts. A timeline that stretched back further than either of them expected. This started before the business, Emily said quietly. Laura froze, because she saw it too. The pattern didn't begin with the company. It began with access, small withdrawals, minor shifts, things no one would notice if they weren't looking closely. But I had been looking, carefully, patiently, long before they realized there was anything to find. Laura sank into the chair. This isn't possible, she muttered. Emily didn't look at her. Yes, it is. Her voice was different now. Clear, cold. Another page turned. At the bottom, a final section. Projected outcome, financial exposure, asset freezes, debt reassignment, legal escalation, estimated timeline, immediate to 30 days. Emily read it once, then again, then she whispered, almost to herself. He knew everything. Laura closed her eyes briefly, not in denial, in recognition, because this wasn't a reaction. It was a process, one that had already been set in motion, and now it was finishing itself. The house got quieter after that, not peaceful, empty. Phones stopped ringing by evening, but the silence they left behind felt worse than the noise. Laura sat at the table, staring at nothing now. The folders spread out like something she couldn't put back together. For the first time in my life, she didn't look in control. Emily stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. At 6:42 p.m., her phone buzzed. She checked it, then frowned. My card declined, she said. Laura didn't react. Emily tried again, right there in the kitchen, opening her banking app, tapping faster now. It says restricted, she added, voice tightening. What does that mean? Laura exhaled slowly. It's temporary. Emily looked up. Temporary for what? No answer. Emily grabbed her keys. I'm going out. To do what? I don't know. Figure this out. She left before Laura could stop her. The drive didn't take long. It didn't need to. The first gas station. Declined. The second attempt. Declined. She stood there for a moment, card still in her hand, people moving around her like nothing had changed, like the world was still operating on the same rules. It wasn't. She drove back on fumes. When she walked into the house again, something in her had shifted. Not panic, not confusion, understanding. She dropped her keys on the counter harder than necessary. This is because of you, she said. Laura looked up slowly. Excuse me? All of it, Emily continued. The accounts, the audit, the business. This is your mess. Laura's expression hardened. Watch how you speak to me. Emily didn't flinch. No, she said quietly. I think I finally am. Silence stretched between them. Then Emily stepped closer to the table, picking up one of the folders again. You used him, she said. Didn't you? Laura stood. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Emily snapped, holding up the documents. Because this doesn't look like a mistake. This looks like years. Laura didn't answer, because there wasn't a version of this that sounded better out loud. Emily's voice dropped, steadier now. He knew. That was the part that settled it. Not anger, not betrayal, certainty. Emily looked around the house, slowly, at the furniture, at the walls, at the life she had always assumed was stable. It was all him, she said. The money, the house, school, everything. Laura tried to interrupt. Emily. And I said he was irrelevant. The words came out flat. No emotion left in them. Just fact. She let out a quiet breath, then shook her head slightly. He didn't leave because of last night, she said. Laura stayed silent, because they both knew that now. Emily placed the folder back down carefully, like it mattered, like it should have always mattered. Then she looked at her mother one last time and said, "You didn't just lie to him." A pause. "You lied to me, too." Emily found the journal by accident. It wasn't in the briefcase. That's what made it worse. It was in my old office drawer, the one she had checked the day before, but didn't open all the way. It had slid back slightly, caught on the frame, hiding a thin black notebook beneath a stack of blank envelopes. She pulled it out slowly. No label, no lock, just wait. Laura was still in the kitchen when Emily walked back in, holding it. "What is that?" she asked. Emily didn't answer. She sat down and opened it. The first page wasn't dated. It wasn't emotional either. Just my handwriting. Steady, clean. She doesn't know. Emily frowned, flipped the page. Entries. Short at first. Observations. Dates. Then longer. Deeper. The paperwork never cleared. I checked twice. Then a third time through a private channel. It was never finalized. Emily's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the page. Laura stepped closer. "Emily." She ignored her. "Another page." I could walk away now. Legally, there's nothing binding me. No obligation. No claim. A pause in the ink. Then, "But she called me Dad today without thinking. I won't correct her." Emily's breath caught, but she kept reading. The entries shifted over time. From uncertainty to decision. "I'll stay. Not because I have to. Because I choose to." Page after page. Years. Moments she didn't even remember clearly. I had written them down. Her first driving lesson. The night she failed a test and locked herself in her room. The college acceptance letter. Small things. Precise things. Things no one records unless they're paying attention. Then she reached the last section. The handwriting hadn't changed, but the tone had. Colder. Sharper. She said, "I'm irrelevant." Emily stopped breathing for a second. Laura whispered, "Emily, don't." But she turned the page anyway. There was a folded letter tucked into the back. Her name on it. Not Emily. Not Kid. Her full name. Careful. Deliberate. She unfolded it slowly and read. I always knew. That was the first line. No explanation. No build-up. Just truth. Not legally mine. Not on paper. But that never mattered to me. Emily's hand started to shake now. Not from shock. From something heavier. I stayed because I hoped one day it wouldn't be about documents or names. A pause in the letter. Like I had taken time before finishing it. I hope one day you would choose me. Emily closed her eyes briefly, then kept going. Not because you had to. Not because I was there. But because you wanted me to be your father. The room was completely silent now. Laura didn't move. Didn't speak. I won't wait for that anymore. That line landed differently. Final. Take care of yourself. No signature. There didn't need to be one. Emily lowered the letter slowly. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then very quietly, he knew the whole time. Laura opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Emily looked down at the journal again, at the years of pages, at the consistency, at the patience. Then she whispered, and he still stayed. That was the part that broke something. Not loudly, not visibly, but completely. I didn't come back. Not in person. Not to the house. Not to them. 3 weeks passed before they heard from me again. By then, the house was quieter than it had ever been. Half the furniture was already listed online. Calls had stopped. Not because things were resolved, but because there was nothing left to negotiate. Everything had moved into channels Laura couldn't control. Emily had stopped asking questions out loud. That was the biggest change. She read instead. Every page, every document, every line I left behind. At 9 a.m. on a Monday, another envelope arrived. Not handwritten this time. Official, thick, delivered by courier. Laura opened it at the table. Emily watched. Inside was a formal letter. Not from me, from a foundation. Ellis Foundation for Usability. Laura frowned. What is this? Emily leaned closer. The letter was brief, structured, clear. It explained the formation of a private foundation funded by the remaining liquid assets I had retained after legal separation from all shareholdings. Its purpose: supporting children in unstable or legally uncertain family situations, educational funding, housing assistance, legal advocacy. Emily read that line twice, then a third time. At the bottom of the letter, a statement, not emotional, not personal, just factual. Founder, Mark Ellis. Laura's voice came out then. He's giving it away? Emily didn't answer, because there was one more page, folded separately, not official. That one was for her. She opened it slowly. My handwriting again, steady as always. You won't hear from me again after this. She didn't move. Not because I hate you. Not because I'm angry. A pause between lines. Because some things don't need to be argued once they're understood. Her grip tightened on the paper. I built something new out of what was left. Something that won't disappear just because someone decides it's irrelevant. Emily exhaled slowly. You don't owe me anything. That line hit harder than the rest. But if you ever wonder what mattered to me... She stopped for a second, then finished it. It was never the documents. Silence filled the room. Laura didn't speak. She didn't try. Because there was nothing left to reshape, nothing left to explain. Emily folded the letter carefully, not rushed, not careless. Then she stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the same yard where everything had started. The lights were gone now, the tables cleared. No trace of the party, just space. For the first time, she understood something fully. I hadn't disappeared. I had removed myself from a life that never really saw me, and built one that would. She didn't cry. She didn't call. She didn't say my name. She just stood there quietly, and finally felt the weight of it. Not loss, not anger. Something colder, something final. Understanding.